Hello and welcome to the Glamptuary podcast, where we talk about the experiential outdoor hospitality industry. I'm your host, Bobby Marsden. It's the season premiere of season 4, and in this season, we are focusing on the business side of experiential outdoor hospitality. We have an amazing collection of guests, and we're kicking off this season with one of the best. Her name is Tori Bolt, and she co-owns BOLT FARM TREEHOUSE with her husband, Seth Bolt. Tori and Seth have been able to amass over 600,000 followers on Instagram. They have a 96% occupancy rate. They've been on shows like Netflix. They're absolutely killing it in the experiential outdoor hospitality space. And in this episode, Tori lets us in on the secrets to her success. She talks about social media marketing. She talks about the origins of BOLT FARM TREEHOUSE and how it was rooted in love and how it's grown over the last 10 years. And she offers great advice for any would-be entrepreneurs who are thinking about leading a life in outdoor hospitality. All that and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the season premiere of season 4 of the Glamptuary podcast. Tori Bolt, so great to have you on the Glamptuary podcast.
Thank you. I'm pumped for our conversation today.
So I've wanted to have you and your husband or you or one of you on the show for quite some time. I've been a big fan of BOLT FARM TREEHOUSE, and you guys are killing it. I mean, I don't know of a better way to describe it. You have almost 600,000 followers on Instagram. You were on Netflix. You have a 96% occupancy rate. I mean, you're kind of setting the bar for what everyone else should be trying to achieve. What would you say is the secret sauce? What's the magic? How would you describe how you've been able to achieve all these things?
Well, first of all, thank you. I mean, it really is incredible to see what BOLT FARM has become over the last decade. This is either going to shock people or really be anticlimactic, but the secret sauce is a lot of hard work and consistency. I mean, that's what it's been for us. You know, over the last 10 years, we have just shown up and mastered every facet of our business. Very hands-on for construction and development. Same for operations. Now we're really focused on building a championship level team who can do that. But that doesn't mean that we're taking our hands off the wheel. So we're very involved in our business. We look at our numbers daily. Like we are business people. I think a lot of people get into this industry because they're creatives or artistic, and that's a great thing. But that will help you build something, but it won't help you sustain a healthy business. And so I think one of our superpowers is kind of that we have both. You know, there's the creativity and vision, but it's also the, what am I going to do about it? And it means getting up at 5:30 a.m. every day. And that's not a requirement to run a healthy business, but that's what we do to get a jump start on everybody else and make sure that we're, showing up well. But I would say, yes, it's the discipline, the hard work, but it's also the team. Depending on the size of business you're looking to run. For us, we have 23 units right now, about to bring on our 24th, and there's no way we could do this alone. And so we have just really focused a lot of our time and energy on working with great people, recruiting some of the best of the best.
You hit the nail on the head there, and it's about the business aspect. You know, there's the side of the idea and the vision, but then it's how do you make that operate? And that's what season 4 is going to be all about. We're certainly going to dive into that. But before we do, I think our listeners and viewers would love to just know more about BOLT FARM TREEHOUSE. You know, if you were to describe it, what kind of structures are there? What could someone experience when they arrive at BOLT FARM? How would you describe that?
Yeah, we are a place that couples go to reconnect. So even more than like what we've built, it's what the experience is. And I think that's really what draws people and sets us apart. And so it's like the ultimate romantic getaway for couples. We're on a mountaintop in Tennessee. We've got 55 acres, over a mile of bluff frontage. It's absolutely breathtaking property. We have luxury tree houses, domes, and mirrors. And we also have a treehouse spa, and we just opened a cliffside wellness haven. It's out of this world. Seth dreamed it up. I don't know how he pulled it off, but he did. There's a steam room, a sauna, cold plunge, hot springs, basically everything you need for like the ultimate spa day. And so we've created this oasis where you can just show up and not have to leave, which is, part of the magic of when you come on a vacation, you want to rest and not busy yourself. We're also in a pretty remote rural area. And so it's also very practical for them to just stay here. And so, food, we've got that covered. Spa, we have that. And so it's really cool. It's evolved. Like if you had followed us from day one about a decade ago, we had one treehouse that was listed on Airbnb. Seth built it by hand with his dad for our wedding day. So like truly this whole thing was inspired by love. That was really what started this all and put us on this path, because we got to experience on our honeymoon what we now deliver to our guests. And that's just the power of an environment that can really help you disconnect from the busyness of life, be present, enjoy life's simple pleasures.
That's a wonderful story. And it obviously started with love with the honeymoon. Now, Seth obviously is your other half. What were your backgrounds? I mean, it sounds like maybe Seth might have been a builder. Did you have a background in hospitality?
No, neither one of us had any hospitality experience, which is kind of crazy. Seth's dad is a builder, and he, has his own construction business. So Seth grew up around it on the job site, learning all the things. But he's also been part of the band Need to Breathe for the past 22 years. And so, like, he's a musician. And so that's also kind of, you wouldn't think those two things are connected, but it led to this because he spends so much of his time traveling and in cities. And, growing up in rural South Carolina, he's like, my spirit just longs to be back in nature. Like, that's where I feel that lift. I feel lighter. I feel inspired. I want to create a little oasis where I can come and rest when I'm off the road and whatnot. And so that's kind of where the idea started. And then he and I met in the process, and he's like, oh, I'm going to make it a romantic, luxurious. But music was his background. For me, it was news. I actually worked in broadcast news. And funny enough, that's actually how I met Seth. I interviewed him and his band before one of their shows. And
Oh, wow.
it wasn't like a love at first sight, sweep me off my feet. We like reconnected 6 months later, and here we are today. But I would like, when I look back at my news career, that's my proudest moment.
Sounds like a pretty big moment and an important moment. So I think another important thing to call out is that you guys really took the plunge then. I mean, you really just dove into an industry with no background in it, which is, I think, fairly common in what's happening in glamping and outdoor hospitality. There's a lot of people that are making that transition from something else into outdoor hospitality or hospitality in general. What were your thoughts when you were doing it, and how did you try and figure out, what should we do? What should we avoid?
That's a great question. And I think Seth has a higher risk tolerance than me and than most people. Like if you're an entrepreneur, you're just wired that way to have the confidence in yourself to figure it out. Looking back, like I wish we had changed some things because, for the first, I would say 6 years in business, we were just figuring things out on our own because we had kind of the limiting belief that, we couldn't afford mentorship or coaches or mastermind, and so we were just figuring it out ourselves. And we did, like, we learned a lot, but we also made a lot of mistakes, very costly mistakes. We actually tallied it all up, and it's millions of dollars of mistakes and time, that just, it took us a lot longer to get there. Not a lot of people know this, but our second development, which was in Charleston, totally failed. And so, Bolt Farm has been a thing for 10 years, but we've only been in Tennessee for 4, not even 4. And it's just been wildly successful, but it was a very rough and slow start. Now, we flipped the switch, and about 4 years ago, we invested in mentors and community groups of people who have, been ahead of us. And it was wild to see, like, just asking the right person one question saved us from a very costly mistake. And so, yeah, I mean, the early days, it was just figuring it out. Now we work smarter, and like, I think it shows in the way our business has grown.
Well, would you say then that mentorship and asking for help were they're two things, but it's kind of one and the same. Would you say that that was maybe one of the biggest reasons that you have realized the type of success that you've realized?
I think so. Absolutely. Being able to surround yourself with people who are growing you and pushing you and have been there before. Maybe, in some cases, there's people who are light years ahead of you. One of our mentors runs $1 billion business, and it's the 3rd business that he's run, and so, of course, asking him a simple question versus us trying to figure it out ourselves is going to make all the difference in the world. And so I'm a huge proponent of that. Now, I mean, this isn't like, this might shock people. but we spend like 6 figures on coaches and groups and mentorship because we know the value and what it can save us and then do for our business. So that absolutely is, I think, one of our edges.
And it's interesting too, because I'd say a struggle most entrepreneurs have is asking for help, or, they're kind of the roll up the sleeves and do it themselves. So I think, there's that being vulnerable aspect to succeeding in business. I think that is very important. So I was looking around social, obviously, to do some research for this, and you guys do a great job with your social, which I'd love to dive into. But one thing I noticed where it struck me is hidden costs with running a business like this. And it's interesting when I talk to many outdoor hospitality providers, they say the number one thing is cleaning the sheets. And it kind of makes me laugh. But laundry is an expensive thing and time consuming. What would you say are some of those things that you realized as you move through the years, the things that we didn't think about?
Yeah. I mean, I feel that with the laundry and housekeeping, that's definitely in there. But I think for us, we have an outdoor hospitality concept. We build it from the ground up, started with raw land, and the infrastructure costs. Holy smokes, like never could have estimated how much it would be. And granted, we're on a mountaintop, there's bedrock. But like it would blow your mind to know how expensive that was. Now, and those are, startup one-time costs. When it comes to operating, I think they hit it on the head with laundry. Like that is a beast. We actually recently made the decision to outsource laundry. And so even though like it's an expensive service, the net, we're better off. But also just, the wear and tear on everything, like being, 95% occupancy means people are using things all the time. And so you're gonna have to replace, your FF&E pretty frequently. So we're 3.5 years in and we've already had to replace a lot of furniture that we just didn't think it would be that fast.
You mentioned infrastructure, and some of this is delegation. Some of it is, and a lot of it, frankly, is tech, because that is kind of where your storefront operates. It's not like people are foot trafficking by BOLT Farm, like, oh, that looks like a nice place, let's stay there. You might be too remote for that. What kinds of things have you learned about your tech stack, the recommendations that you have, things that you use that you'd recommend other people look at, or just things that you'd recommend people think about when they are building their tech stack?
Very timely, because we are actually in the process right now of overhauling our tech stack, because it is so important to get right. Like you said, it's the foundation for your business. And we have just experienced a ton of pain points with having siloed systems and information that cannot easily travel, from one system to the other. And the last thing your team wants is a Google Sheets empire and all this manual stuff they need to, enter every day. Like it's frustrating and inefficient. But I think that's the reality for a lot of business owners in this space, because it's just challenging. And there's like an overwhelming number of options. And a lot of them, they're like, hey, we're the one-stop shop for everything. And in reality, like when you really dig in, that's not true. I mean, maybe they could do all the things, but do they do it well? And from our experience, we have found that most of them do one thing exceptionally well, maybe 2 or 3, like pretty darn great. But beyond that, like just don't even bother. So it's going to be a multi-system tech stack for us, at least. You've got your CRM, your PMS, your guest communications, and more. Housekeeping, maintenance, project management, tracking. I mean, there's so many different things. Your POS, your scheduler. And so we have spent a lot of time and well over 6 figures investing in the best tech stack. And so we've worked with some of the top tech consultants in the hospitality space over the past year. We actually created 2 roles on our team specifically dedicated to this. And it's too soon for me to like give an endorsement, because a lot of this that we're using is either new or we're still in the process of implementing. But just from what we've seen proven out so far, I know I'm super excited, and our team is, for the time that we're going to get back from just working more efficiently. I think a lot of times people they hear tech or AI and think like, how does this work with hospitality? It's all about the human touch and the personalization. So like, how do I make sense of all this? And for us, we leverage tech and AI to get us all time back so that we can spend far more time on the things that matter. It's not scalable or feasible to spend time, making a personalized gift or touch for each guest if you're spending 20 hours a week on simple data thing, either that tech could take the place of. And so that's how we look at it. And it's freeing us up to do some of our best and most creative work.
Yeah, you can only be in one place at one time. And I think tech can be scary, but once you embrace it and learn it and understand it, and that probably goes back to the mentorship and finding the right consultants, someone that can walk you through that. When things become more familiar, they become less scary. And especially with AI, people definitely have emotional reactions when you bring up those two letters, but I think it's a tool that's going to be here to stay. It's obviously not going anywhere. And so my inclination is learn how to use it as a tool and a support system. Speaking of using things, social media is something you guys do really well at. Social media landscape has changed. It used to be a lot of organic. Now it's pay to play. You have almost 600,000 followers on Instagram, which is very, very hard to achieve nowadays. And what are the things you found that work?
Man, I could talk for days about social media because it's where I spend the most of my time in the business on the marketing and brand side. Um, it is a beast. The algorithm is always evolving. And I do think that, we had some advantage by getting in on it early, I guess, if you will, if 2016 was early and we were just, hitting it hard and leveraging it. And even now, like we very recently started really leaning into paid media, paid social. For a really long time, it was all organic. And even now when we do paid, we want to, or like if we're, really doubling down on a new channel, we don't go right into paid. We want to get that page hot first with our organic. Then you find your top performers and use that for your content for paid. And so like, it seems pretty obvious, but a lot of people don't do that. And so like, you want to warm up your page first. For us, we concentrated a lot of our effort onto Instagram. I think that's good and bad. That's good because, instead of having our attention, time, and energy really diluted, it was very laser focused to what was working. But as you'll see, like that is our strongest and largest platform. If you go onto Pinterest, we've got like probably less than 5,000 followers, and so our goal isn't necessarily to dominate every platform. It's to dominate where our customers are. And that's evolving as we've evolved, like our nightly rate for our treehouses have 10x since we first started. And so the same people who were booking then aren't booking now. And so for us, this might surprise people, but we actually see very little success on TikTok. And I say little success, success is all about what you measure. And so we are always looking at success as in conversions. Is it converting to sales? I care less about how many people view my post if no one buys, no one books. And so on TikTok, we actually have a few, I think like 100,000 followers, but no one's booking. And I could get into why we think why that is, but at a $800 nightly rate, like we host a lot of business owners or maybe couples who are empty nesters, or maybe they, it's their first time away from their kids in a long time. They're in their like 30s, mid 30s to mid 50s. Are they on TikTok? Not a lot.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up about demographic and who's kind of participating on what platform, because I would agree that TikTok is certainly aimed at Gen Z or younger. And also, I think Gen Z is eventually going to be the people that are coming online and spending the kind of money that would equate out to an $800 a night treehouse. And so that's going to be an interesting thing to watch as that e-commerce platform progresses. And when it comes to market reach and kind of reaching your people, there's obviously other levers you can pull, like OTAs or partnership programs, loyalty programs. What have you found to be successful or not successful, or things you like or don't like about those types of levers, like an OTA or like a loyalty program?
So, we currently stay away from all the OTAs. And it's kind of one of our badges of honor. Like we do 100% direct bookings with our guests. I'm really proud of that because it didn't start out that way. But as we built trust over the years, we've been able to achieve that. And like, why does that even matter? And are the OTAs bad? Like, no, of course they're not bad. It's another way to get yourself out there. But know that you're giving away 15% of your business. So if you can do it yourself for cheaper, like that's just a numbers-based decision. And on top of that, there's some other things too. With Airbnb, there's the data wall, with your guests and like limiting your communication with them. We care about having guests for life. And so we have a 25% rebooking rate of guests who are booking their next day before they leave. property, and doing that direct just makes that possible. It makes it so much easier. So we like to be in control of our business, our communication. And so we look at it as, if it would be more effective and cheaper to acquire new customers through the OTAs, then we would, but that hasn't been the case. For loyalty programs, we only have our own right now, which is like also awesome, but
Oh, cool.
we're definitely open to it. I think like we are still getting ourselves out there for, corporate retreats and business travel. And I think like pairing ourselves with the right loyalty programs that's very specific, and to our customer would make a ton of sense.
Talk a little bit about your loyalty program, because it's fairly uncommon, especially for standalone boutique hotels or a one-off, which is kind of like what I would qualify or quantify as BOLT Farm Treehouse. But you're running a loyalty program, which is very smart. But how does yours work?
So right now we have a pretty simple and straightforward rebooking program. And it's just, it's an offer that gets guests back. We like utilize some of the amenities that we have on property. So they'll actually get a free couples massage on their next stay when they book at happy hour, for example. So we're just incentivizing them to already, plan their next stay. This is something that I don't think we've shared publicly. So it's, you heard it here first, but we are in the process of developing our membership program, which will take it even further. It's not live, right now, but that's coming. And I think that will just look like a bigger, more robust version of our rebooking program.
That's awesome. And it's, again, very smart. I mean, customer retention, customer acquisition, those are like two of the either things that are going to kill your business or the thing that's going to springboard it. And if you can master both of those things, which it sounds like you are, when it comes to, I think, the broader aspect of loyalty programs, and I say this because Hilton, Hyatt, Marriott, Best Western, some of these places are getting their toe or their foot or their entire body into the glamping sector, whether it's a partnership or merger and acquisition, or they're literally just opening their own properties. They're going to have massive loyalty programs to bring to the table with those. What kinds of things do you think could help the lifestyle choice of being a single operator like yourselves and then trying to compete with loyalty programs like that? What do you think could help the outdoor hospitality industry so people can preserve their independent nature?
Yeah. No, I am with you. That's a great question. I think it comes down to two things. One is just you have to knock your guest socks off so hard. One of our core values is we wow every guest. And so, like I was saying earlier, we want to do a personalization for every single guest so that when they show up, they feel known. Like you're probably not going to get that at, a Hilton multi-site. You might. And if so, then like amazing, well done. But typically when you get to that size, it's really hard to show up on that level of just personalization and wow. And I mean so much that like, if you were to come and stay with us now, our systems, our tech would be tracking your behavior. We would know that you got a wheat beer on day 2 and that you like that. So then when you come back, we're going to have a 6-pack waiting in your fridge. You're like, wow, they remembered. Like those little things can really set you apart. And if you feel known and you have a world-class experience, you're going to keep going back, even if it's an independent company. Now, we kind of tying it back to mentors and coaches, we now coach and mentor short-term rental business owners to help them achieve their goals and grow their business. And something I'll tell them is, we see two buckets of people. There's people who they want to scale their business to sell it. And then there's people like us who want to keep it forever, as part of their legacy. And so, but even if you want to keep your business, I think you should build to sell. You should build your business in a way that it would be attractive, to a buyer. Because then you're just going to have a very healthy business that you like.
Yeah. And I think that there's lots of different ways to do that where you can still maintain your independence. And perhaps it's a soft brand where you might be part of a larger consortium, but you're still able to operate under your original moniker. And the one thing I do want to go back to is your call out about hospitality. And people, it's a strange word sometimes, but what I think hospitality is exactly what you just said. Being able to give those little touches that someone knows that you took the extra time and care. So remembering the wheat beer and having the 6-pack there, to me, that's hospitality. And it is awesome that you guys are doing that. it sounds like you have a lot to offer at Bolt Farm, and you're constantly growing. What is next for you guys? Like, what's kind of you're doing the loyalty program, you're building that out as a membership. What other kinds of things are you going to have? Because I know the Mirror House was a recent addition. Do you have like what's the next structure? What's the next experience? What are the other plans for Bolt Farm?
Yeah, we're always growing and pushing the limits. The latest thing that we unveiled was the Wellness Haven. You've got to see that. It's incredible. After that, we're building 10 more tree houses. So our property, yeah, it lends itself to have up to 50 units. We actually proved out that we could do far above that, but we really want to protect the density and everyone's privacy. So we feel like 50 is going to be about our sweet spot. And this is our flagship. So, we like to nail it, then scale it. And so we're making this an operational machine and then, continuing to go from there. And something that's really cool is with our coaching and our workshops, not only are we helping people grow their business, but it also really helps us with deal flow and checking out other potential people that we might acquire or partner with. Like, yes, we will probably build out another property from the ground up like we did here, but the fastest way to growth, I think, is through partnerships and acquisitions. And so because we're so protective of our brand, we wouldn't just do that with anybody, obviously. And so our workshops actually give us a chance to see these different business owners and their businesses and be like, oh, I really like their concept. They have a lot of potential here. Let me help them continue to grow it and develop it to be something that I would be proud of being a part of. And so that's kind of the other part of it. So it's like a mutually beneficial relationship.
Well, it kind of sounds like you're creating a loyalty program of sorts amongst providers, which I think is really cool. And I think as an entrepreneur, you can get siloed. You get so focused on what you're doing that you forget to talk to other people. and I've heard that quite a bit from other hospitality providers. They're so focused and so 16, 17 hours a day. When do they have time to talk to other people? So it's awesome that you guys are offering those educational connections. Speaking of, so if someone was out there listening to this and they fell into some money and they were thinking, oh, this sounds like a wonderful lifestyle, I want to do what Tori and Seth are doing, what are some of the things that you would advise them to think about first?
I would say there are easier ways to make money. It's easier to move bits than atoms. It's like you are only in this business because you love it. It can be a very profitable business. It is, but you've got to be in it for more reasons than that. And that's the case for us because it's true. There are probably easier ways to make money. I think one of the advantages to kind of unique outdoor hospitality, a concept like we have is, with a traditional hotel, you have to commit to the multi-story skyscraper building all at once and just pray that you're going to be able to fill 300 rooms. But with a model like ours, you can build in phases, which has been super helpful. So we started here with 10. And as we saw demand get to a healthy place, then we added on. We did another phase. And so that helps you not overextend yourself and really wait. So I would say dream big and long, think long, find a property that you could put 50 units on, 20, whatever your sweet spot number is, because the last thing you want to do is say, well, I can't even think about anything more than 5. So I'm going to buy a property that serves that. Well, then you outgrow it. And now the hardest and most expensive thing is the land. And so think long, but start slow. We fire, bullets, then cannonballs. And so start slow because the last thing you want to do is scale your problems. And we unfortunately, we made the mistake. We started with 8 domes. I wish we had started with 1 or 2. We would have changed some things along the way. Whereas with our tree houses, we started with 2, reiterated, built another 4, reiterated, built 5, so we keep getting better. And so that would be my advice would be plan big, but start small.
So it sounds like find the canvas and then realize you can paint over that and paint over that and paint over that and kind of continue to evolve it. That's good advice. What would you say are things that you would recommend for people to watch out for? Because I feel like as this industry grows, there'll be a lot of other people out there that might be throwing offers your way. Oh, this is the best, or you have to do it this way. Or are there any kind of common themes where you've heard, or that you've experienced to say these are the things that you want to avoid when you're getting something like this started?
Well, that is a long list, but I'll give you the first 2 that came to my mind. I think they're the most powerful 2. One is be aware of the shiny objects. One of our other big advantages has been our laser focus. when opportunities come our way, brand collabs, do this, do that, this partnership, this property, we've said no to so many things, including mentoring. We were asked for years and we were like, no, we're building our thing. We're earning our stripes right now. And we've just been so laser focused, but saying no to everything else has allowed us to say yes. And, back to this industry attracting a lot of creatives and dreamers, you tend to be Enneagram 7s like my husband, and you want to just do everything. You've really got to fight that pull. The second thing I would help or advise people to be mindful of and be aware of is the tempting pull to race to the bottom with your prices. That's really dangerous, and it's going to hurt you and it's going to hurt the entire industry. If you're just like, how can I make this, as cheap and affordable as possible? Like, where do you go from there? So us, we started out with a luxury high-end treehouse, and we thought, how can we make this just as incredible, world-class as possible? $1,000 a night treehouse? Are you kidding me? And so we started out at $111 per night, but we just continued to grow, push the upper limits, increase the value. So you don't want to drop your prices to meet your value. You want to increase your value to meet the worthiness of your prices. And I think that's how everybody wins, is just by leveling up and making it an upward trajectory for glamping or for outdoor hospitality. I've seen canvas tents really, really well done with decks and hot tubs, and they're $800 a night. And I'm like, yes, and then I've also seen the tent, you can tell they threw it up as quickly as possible and did the least, and have a $100 a night offering, which just isn't ideal, because it's a lot of work to be in this business. So you may as well maximize your ROI on your time.
Well, that sounds like it always goes back to the origin story. And you guys built this out of love, and that love had attention to detail. And it sounds like you've really done a nice job of paying attention to detail and kind of letting that lead your way in your business decisions, and having a strong set of values, knowing why you would do something, why you wouldn't do something.
Yeah.
All great advice. Well, Tori, I thank you for your time, and a big congratulations to everything that you and Seth have accomplished. And hopefully someday I'll get to meet the other half. Maybe on a visit out to Tennessee.
Yes, that'd be wonderful. We'd love to have you.
Well, I will let you get back to it, and I will start to look at my calendar, and we'll get something in the books.
So good. Thank you, Bobby.
I want to thank Tori for joining us on the Glamptuary podcast. She provided us with so much useful information. I thank her for that, and I'm excited to see what she has in store for BOLT FARM TREEHOUSE in the future. Can't wait to get out there and see it for myself. If you'd like to visit them at BOLT FARM TREEHOUSE, you can do so first by stopping at their website, and that is www.boltfarmtreehouse.com. That is www.boltfarmtreehouse.com. And if you'd like to follow us on the Glamptuary podcast, which I'd love you to do, you can start by visiting us on our website and subscribing. And that is www.glamptuary.com. That is www.glamptuary.com. You can also subscribe and follow along on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Pandora Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. Join us any which way you like. We just ask that you join. Thanks again, and we'll see you down the trail.